Hi, this is Jamey with Stonemeyer Games, and I'm here today to talk about my favorite game mechanism in time stories. This is a completely spoiler-free discussion of a certain mechanism in time stories. It's a mechanism that you would read about if you read the rulebook. And the rulebook does not have things that you unlock. It's just you read the rulebook and you start playing. So in time stories, it's a cooperative game where players are traveling backwards or forwards in time to a certain place and then solving a mystery in that place. I have just played the first mystery, the one that comes in the box. And the mechanism that I'm so excited about that I really, really enjoyed while I was playing Time Stories was an element involving the cards. So in Time Stories, whenever like I said, it's a cooperative game, so everyone will decide a certain area to go to, and then they'll lay out a panorama of cards that shows what that area looks like. So say you walk into a room with the other players. The panorama will show what you see when you walk into that room, and it's composed of a bunch of different cards. And then each player decides which card they want to interact with and learn about. They'll put their little player token on that, and multiple players can put their token on the same card if they want. All the players who have their token on the card will then simultaneously pick up the card and look at the back of it. And this is the first thing I love about this mechanism. It's simultaneous. So you're not waiting for other players to do a thing. You're all doing this at the same time. The second, and probably the best part about this mechanism, is that as you look at the card, so on the back of the card, there's going to be maybe some text. There's sometimes some task you have to fulfill. Sometimes there's art. But you aren't showing this to the other players. You are consuming that information and then putting the card back down and then relaying that information to all the other players. So it's as if you truly walked into a room, dispersed and went to look at different stuff, and then got back together and talked about it. This is so clever because it lets you, it feels very real, like I just described it. It feels like a real thing that you're doing as you interact with this world. But B, it's so interesting because you absorb and relay different types of information. There's a lot of information on some of these cards. Some of it might be important, some of it might not be important, and it's kind of up to you to figure out what's so important about it. It's key that you're not just reading the text to everybody out loud or showing it to everybody, because the sharing of information is a huge part of the game. Again, I'm not going to get anything a specific way at all here, but there was one card that I read in the game where I described it to everybody, and like 5 minutes later, I realized something about the card that I hadn't even mentioned, and I kind of just mentioned it offhand, and suddenly someone else made a connection as to something else that they had seen on their card that they hadn't really highlighted all that much, and it sent us off on a whole different path, which is a completely different experience than I've had in really any other game. That type of relaying of information and expressing what you think is important or what isn't important. It's brilliant, that aspect of the game, and I'd love to see it in other games where you are encountering certain things that other players aren't there to experience. It's kind of the opposite. I did the opposite in Scythe, where you have encounters, and even though thematically all the other players are scattered throughout the world and they would never see the encounter that you're having in the game, they do see it. Just so they can kind of participate in what's happening. But I kind of like Time Stories method better, where it's an individual, it's a personal experience, that one interaction, and then you're talking about it later. So it would be interesting to see this in some sort of game that has that experience where you're kind of going off for a day and having an adventure, and then you come back and convene at the tavern that night and talk about what you saw and what you did. Maybe you lie about it. Maybe you tell them some things that really happened and other things that didn't happen. You have to figure out what people are expressing to you. That almost sounds like that is a game that already exists, so if it is, let me know in the comments. If you have played Time Stories and you want to talk about this mechanism, please be completely spoiler-free. Just talk about the mechanism in general as it is expressed in the rulebook and how you feel about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks.